ethnic Albanians did not have as their goal to separate from Yugoslavia and associate with Albania. My staff informs me that that Radio Free Europe reported last week that according to a poll of ethnic Albanians in Kosovo, most believe the best solution to the province's problems would be a merger with Albania. Would you comment on that, and do you see another solution that might be more likely to improve the conditions in Albania? Because the Kosovo situation of everything in preparing for this hearing that I did, I find, in a sense, not the human tragedy that is involved, but in a sense, the easiest and the most difficult problem. The least dangerous for the republic, for the nation as a whole, but the most intransigent for how do you accomplish, assuming you are correct, that Albanians in Kosovo are the victims of repression. Assume that to be true, as you certainly do. Where does the solution lie? And so back to my original question. Do you believe that the Radio Free Europe poll is incorrect? And B, what is the answer? Because I doubt whether you're going to tell me that after 1,000 years, you're going to be able to rectify attitudes about who stole whose house when.
Let me begin by again thanking you, Mr. Chairman, for your patience, and I really...
I have more questions than you have the time to answer, I'm afraid.
I'm impressed by your patience and by the incisiveness of your questions. Let me say this. You've been in politics a long time. I was only in politics 4 years. I was a CPA for 22 years.
You kept your hair, I lost mine. That's
well,
part of the problem.
That's debatable, but let me say this. What polls do you believe? And what polls don't you? I don't know how that poll was taken. I don't know how the questions were framed.
I don't either.
And you don't either. But let's assume for basis of discussion, that the poll was prepared along the lines that would be prepared, let's say, for one of your elections, and somehow it came out on that basis. And I might be surprised up front, but then I might think about it and say, you know, what is the hope for these Albanian people? Why do they even consider answering a question like that? Well, there's such oppression. They're looking for some hope, and Lord knows at the time that question was asked, they may have said that. But let me tell you why that won't happen, Mr. Chairman. The present leadership of Kosova, the democratic leadership, has said, and by the way, this is what cost me the 5-year ban. It wasn't because I was a bad boy. I was with Congressman Lantos. He sent a letter to the State Department.
Congressman Lantos used to work for me. He did foreign policy for me, so I know you were in trouble if you were.
Well, he was going to be here, but I don't think he can make it. But let me say this:
he's one of the great. I'm only kidding.
Yeah, he's a good
man. Great.
We tried to be as civil. We tried to be as non-controversial as possible. And everything was going fine until I covered an area, because, you see, as I said before, there's a magnificent propaganda machine in Belgrade, and I found the article. It was in New York Times, September 13th. Truth is a casualty of the partisan Yugoslav press. This is written by our press in the New York Times. And their propaganda, and especially since they monopolized the media, it's difficult for the Albanians to contend with that propaganda. But they did, Mr. Chairman, except for one item, which I disposed of with Congressman Lantos in June of last year, and that's what resulted in the 5-year ban, because Mr. Milosevic did not want to hear it. But let me tell you what it is. It's very simple, and it will guarantee the fact that the Albanians will never leave Yugoslavia, and that fact is that the democratic leadership of Kosovo has announced that it's willing to put in their constitution, the Kosovo constitution, a point that the Serbian minority can veto any secession from Yugoslavia. So they have gone on record, I've gone on record, and this was the last big piece of propaganda that Slobodan Milosevic had. He didn't want to hear it. He doesn't want to hear from me anymore, because now the Albanians have a spokesman for a change. So, but I'm saying to you that no matter what that poll said, you can see the record for itself. The leader of the Democratic Party there, the Democratic League of Kosovo, the alliance, Dr. Rogova, has said that in the Constitution of Kosovo, for republic status, they will allow the Serbian minority the right to veto any secession from Yugoslavia. What more could you say?
Well, as I said, I have a lot more questions, but I've really trespassed on your time already. It's now, especially those of you...
May I just add,
sure.
If you're going to conclude, I just wanted to make one other point, Mr. Chairman, that we can answer a lot of the assertions that were made, and we won't. But I think there's one thing, getting back to State Department policy, that you should be aware of, because I believe that the most important aspect of this meeting, Mr. Chairman, is that the State Department addressed the issue of its accountability to all the people in Yugoslavia. And obviously, we have concerns of a national security point of view. There's no question about that. But one of the things that I would want to alert you to, that you may be aware of already, is that the current leader of Serbia, and I have nothing against the Serbian people. I think many of them are very fine people. I'm dealing with the Serbian authorities when I speak about that. The current leader has expansionist goals. There's no question. Even in the press recently, he announced his designs on parts of Croatia. He literally wants to come back to the greater Serbian dream that was there years ago. He's used that in Kosovo to get elected, and he's not stopping. And this is the problem that we're now seeing with Croatia. He would love to see Slovenia leave. He'd love to see Croatia leave if he can keep part of that Dalmatian coast, which would be very dangerous, and I'll tell you why in a minute, because he knows he can subjugate the Macedonians, the Montenegrins, and the Albanians. He literally has a design for Greater Serbia. He doesn't care if Yugoslavia breaks up, as long as he keeps all of Kosovo, and he's able to deal with the others. But our State Department better do a better job than they did in Kuwait. Because if we had been positioned in that part of the world, and our intelligence was better, we wouldn't be losing men right now and women on the front. We had to react. And we shouldn't be reacting right now. We should have been better. They're making the same mistake today in Yugoslavia. Because we know that if Serbia gets its designs and they then get a warm water port, we are now playing into the hands of the Soviet Union. They've been looking for that warm water port for years. And let me tell you, Mr. Milosevic and Mr. Gorbachev have a very comfortable relationship. They've met many times for hours in private rooms, and I don't know what they're talking about, but our State Department better be put on notice that if Slobodan Milosevic gets his way, and somehow Serbia extends to the warm waters, we will undermine another State Department policy, and that's keeping the Soviet Union away from a warm water port in that area.
Senator